Hello everyone and welcome to the round 10 trade targets and burning questions for NRL SuperCoach 2022. It's Magic Round. Anyone who's up in Brisbane, just let me know if you're going. It should be a lot of fun. I was toying with the idea, but other stuff actually came up in my personal life, so I thought we'll give it a miss for this year. It would have been nice to go, but I was only up in Brisbane a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, there's some good games this week. Funnily enough though, a lot of the top teams seem to be versing each other over the next few weeks. It's making trades a bit hard. Thanks for everyone who's already in the chat. There will be no doggo reveal on this stream. I can show you a picture if you like, but no, he's currently sleeping, so I don't want to be mean and disturb him. So he won't be joining us for the stream. I've shown him before though on my Twitter. Speaking of, we're almost at 1,000 followers on Twitter, which is crazy. Thanks to everyone who's following me on Twitter as well. I mean, look, I don't really do much on Twitter. All the content's on YouTube, but look, almost 1,000 followers on Twitter is awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. So we had a few people woofing earlier in the chat. Nice to see you all there. Jessica, Mitchell, Connor, Nathan, Meat Wagons as always, Divine, Rio, D. Perry, Fowler. Great to see all of you guys here. And girls, judging by the name of Jessica. Good to see you here as well. So lots of questions I'm going to assume, obviously, as always. We'll get through everything. We'll try to go through different sections and things, but yeah, we'll leave some time at the end for like real specific, just general Q&A. We'll try to answer questions throughout, but hopefully the content and what we show will address a lot of your questions. So I'll quickly start off just looking how I went last week, just a brief update. So I didn't do that well. I mean, the Pappy captain was not ideal. The fact that he was injured after the first half, he was looking on course for a good score, but I ended up on 1273. Not captaining Hines was the big reason why I didn't have such a big score, but I also just don't have some players like Munster and IPAP who went really well, who are highly owned. So yeah, look, I still went up 153 spots. Green is green. It ain't much, but it's an honest day's work, as I posted on Twitter. So we went up a little bit. It's a green arrow. We'll keep chipping away, but what's more important is that you guys do well. I actually don't really care how I rank, to be honest. Obviously, I want to be high up if I can, but if you guys are doing well, that's all that matters, to be honest, as a content creator. So yeah, let me know how you guys are sitting in the rankings, if you're happy with your rank. Yep, I am saying, yeah, I beat you. Honestly, I don't think it's actually that much of an achievement to be beating me so far this year, so I wouldn't be taking too much pride in that. I'd be saying if you're in the top like 5,000, you're probably in a really good spot so far. But yeah, not much to really discuss more. Thank you, Lockie. I have had a good day. We'll quickly just get into some TLT talking points. So I did this last week and I thought we'll do it again this week just to kind of quickly wrap up all the main stuff from TLT. We won't go through game by game. But yeah, so the main one was with Manly. Lots of talking points around Manly this week. So Havili's back after 2 weeks out. Josh Schuster, though, still looks to be out for another week at least. Still battling his calf injury, which is a bit of a shame because I was looking at Josh actually this week. And the big one is probably Burbo. Ben Trbojevic has been named at centre ahead of Morgan Harper. So that's actually really encouraging if you were looking at Ben Trbojevic this week as a downgrade. The fact that he's named at centre ahead of Harper does show you that he's probably above in the pecking order. And he does cover round 13. So he is an enticing cheapie that I think a lot of people will be looking at. It's got dual status as well. For the Broncos, Payne Haas is back, thank God. I've got him in my team, so it's really nice to see him back this week after deciding to hold, and hopefully he just comes back and is almost back to his best. With the Raiders though, so Adam Elliott starting again at hooker. I know a few people have asked about Adam Elliott previously. I haven't personally gone for it, but look, he's done okay the last couple of weeks. I think he got around 57 in Supercoach last week. Look, if he keeps getting named a hooker with Starling on the bench, he might even get that dual status. So that's something to think about in round 12. This hooker, second row forward dual status, the likes of Cotter, Connor Watson. It's a pretty handy dual thing to take note of, but I'm not really that interested in too many other Raiders players, though, to be honest. Jamal Fogarty hasn't been named, but he is returning to training, so that's potentially bad news for Brad Schneider. If you are still holding him, he could maybe not play round 13, and in any case, he probably has peaked in price, so that's something to think about as well, that his time will be coming to an end soon as well. Big one for the Warriors is obviously Tohu Harris coming back. I don't think Tohu is a buy, though, if anyone is thinking about it, just because coming back with an ACL injury, we know that he's a workhorse, and his Supercoach output is mainly based on his work rate. Coming off an ACL injury, you just never know will he go straight to full 80 minutes? So I would not personally be buying Tohu just yet. I'd be waiting and watching. And Ewan Aiken has been named, although there is a 6-day turnaround. So I would just be keeping an eye on kind of final team list if he does actually not end up playing. I think it's a good sign that he was named. After playing on Sunday, I believe it was, and being named for a Saturday game with this HIA. Just something to keep in mind there. For the Rabbitohs, so Nikorima is actually now on the bench. So I've read articles that he's not intended to be played at number 9, and it's mainly just going to be like a utility. So I just wonder how that's going to work out, maybe if that affects Ilias in any way, but I think we just have to watch it this week and see what happens. And yeah, Isaiah Tass drops out, which is a bit annoying if you were relying on him to play in your centre wing. And I still think I would just hold him personally because, Jackson Paula has been named to start ahead of him. Paula throws in a couple of bad games and Tass could be straight back in. And then he does have a negative break even, so the next time he plays, he'll still make money. So I wouldn't be trading out Tass if you can avoid it. Keep him there just because he has got that very low break even. Cam Murray is also a big one, looks to be out for about 3 to 4 weeks. So, this will have impacts on, say, like a Jai Arrow, who a lot of people are going to be selling. But with Murray out and Jai Arrow named at lock, he could actually now be a hold because he could play decent minutes. And Campbell Graham with the centre switch has actually been named on the left, which is probably actually better for him. So that's something to think about if you're looking for a pod like Campbell Graham. Storm, so obviously we know with Papenhuyzen, he's out for about 4 to 6 weeks. So immediate sell, in my opinion. You can't have that much value sitting there. There's no point even trying to think about holding him and working around it when he's over 900k. As Nathan says in the chat, lower leg injuries. Look, I'm not a physio, but I listened to NRL Physio's Magic Sponge podcast, which is great, talking about the injury. Hamstring, he's just not a fan of, re-injury risk. And Papenhuyzen has had injury concerns in the past, so, it can keep ongoing even past the 4 to 6 weeks. So no questions that he's a sell, unfortunately. And so obviously the big thing will be who to sell for. Is the easy answer Turbo? I'm not sure. We'll go through it. Other changes as a result of that. So Nick Amini goes to fullback. Could be a nice pod to consider. Dean Eremaya and Marian Seve actually get the nod at wing and centre to cover. Both of those guys are like over 300k, so they're not really kind of cheap bottom dollar players that we can consider, which is a bit annoying. It would have been nice. And Tyron Wishart's on the bench, which kind of kills him, I think, as an option. With the Sharks, so obviously with Kennedy being out, Hines goes to fullback, which I think is actually going to be even better for him for Supercoach. We saw that last week where he was defending at fullback, so he was getting more run meters, but then he was actually attacking as a halfback, getting that kind of, he was attacking as a fullback. So he was getting a lot of those try assists. So so Marauders asking about Arrow hold. Yeah, I think so now with that Cam Murray injury. I probably would say that Arrow is a hold. His break-even's not super high from memory, it's around the 70s, and I think the minutes should be up, so he should hopefully get to around 55, 60 points. So I don't think he's necessarily a massive sell now with that news with Cam Murray. Connor Tracy does come in for Ramian for 3 weeks. Could be a pod, but when you know that you've only got like a 3-week window, if you've got the trades to maneuver, you could maybe go with Tracy because Sharks actually have a pretty decent draw. And McInnes is back on the bench, so it's really hard to kind of see what is going to happen with McInnes. Do we even consider him? With the Roosters, not much there apart from Tupanua actually starts. I haven't written it here, but Tupanua does start again, which is actually kind of frustrating for people who own him. You're just not sure what to do with him. Is he a hold or is he a sell? But yeah, Connor Watson starts in place of Sam Verrills, so another one to consider. But I would also still wait a week on him just because Drew Hutchinson is in the 14 and they can share minutes. And Watson's minutes were being but they were just fluctuating beginning of the season. So definitely no need to rush to buy him, but just someone to keep in a monitor on. With the Eels, not much apart from Sean Russell's in the extended reserves. So if you've got him in your team, you might just want to consider holding because he might be back next week and he does have a negative break even from memory. And it's the left wing spot for the Eels is very good. And then I've spelled his name wrong, apologies, but yeah, Luciano Leilua, not Leila, Leilua. He starts for the Tigers. So that's my kind of wrap up of TLT and any of the main talking points. Obviously, if there's anything I missed, give me a shout out and hopefully I'll remember as we continue with the stream. But yeah, those are some kind of Supercoach implications, I think, out of TLT. And before I just start getting onto hot topics and, questions, I wanted to just quickly go through as well just general team stats. I think I mentioned it last week, just starting to adjust my thinking on the difficulty of teams. So teams like the Cowboys are now considered a more difficult team based on their form and also their defensive stats. They're in top 4 for total points conceded. And even teams like the Broncos have even gone above the likes of the Eels and the Rabbitohs and Manly for points conceded. So you can't even look at that as a easy matchup. And so I bring this up because obviously people are going to be considering Tom Trbojevic. He's versing the Broncos this week. Is it the easiest matchup on paper? Last year would say, hell yes. This season it's not looking as straightforward, but Turbo is Turbo. We know that he is a gun. And also it just makes me think that, okay, yeah, Knights, Warriors, Titans, Dragons, Bulldogs, Raiders, even the Tigers still to an extent. They are teams that we can still target. And even Manly and Eels, they are good teams, but they do concede points. So I'm not as scared of those matchups if I'm looking at the draw, say, of an attacking player. And so that black box that I've got, this is from my own little spreadsheet that I've got with the little calculator. This is the kind of draw difficulty of teams over the next, I believe it was over the next 6 weeks. So it is a bit misleading when you look at, say, Panthers number 3, because their next 3 games are really tough. They've got Storm, Roosters, Cowboys, but the 3 after that are the Bulldogs, Knights and Warriors, which is why my calculator ranks them highly. It doesn't really take into consideration, the recency or what's coming up ahead for the draw. But yeah, it's the reason I bring it up as well, because a lot of the teams we're looking at, Manly, Storm, Roosters, Eels, even Cowboys, they've got kind of tough runs coming up. So it's a bit difficult to try to, see what's happening or which players you want to get. Just in terms of the TLT stuff, I can see someone in the chat said that Taff in doubt. So I also read that, yeah, he had illness, so he missed a training session, but it didn't sound too serious. So I think the Rabbitohs play one of the earlier games this week, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. Yeah, I think they play the 3rd game of the round. So I still think you'd have enough time to maneuver with Taff, but I've heard it was just an illness and it shouldn't be anything more serious than that. So I think slight doubt, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. I don't think you would miss the game unless there'd probably be more chat about that, I think, if it was more likely to be in doubt. Okay, so cool. The first topic is Turbo time, the old Jingle Bells movie. What a movie with Arnie. Good old Turbo man. So yeah, is it time for Turbo? He is on paper the most obvious replacement for Papenhuyzen, right? So what I wanted to do was put the draw up for not just the next 5 or 6 weeks, but all the way up until past round 18, where they've got the 2 buys and also State of Origin to take into consideration. So the reason I'm getting a bit hesitant on Turbo is there's also this talk of wet weather for Brisbane this week, which might affect Magic Round, although I've heard that it's supposed to ease off come Friday and the weekend, so it might not be as bad. But yeah, we were just talking about the Broncos not being as much of a difficult match on paper, and we have to consider that they're the only home team this week. Every game's played at Suncorp. Brisbane is the only team. It's Magic Round. The crowd's going to be up for it. I don't know if this is me building a stupid narrative, but that match doesn't seem as easy on paper. Eels looks okay because Eels still can concede points. After that, though, you've got the Storm, very tough. Round 13, he's not going to play. We expect he'll be with Origin. Then round 14, it's 4 days after the State of Origin game on the Wednesday. So 4 days, you'd say, is just about enough rest. The problem is with Turbo, because of injury concerns, and historically, is he going to be playing that week? This is why I'm getting the hesitancy, because I'm not sure. Look, if I say he's got Broncos, Eels, which are okay, but then he's got Storm, which is tough, misses round 13, maybe misses round 14. Then he's got the Cowboys and Storm again, who are saying are 2 better teams this season. Then he misses round 17 again with Origin. And then he has a 3-day turnaround after State of Origin game 3, where he plays the Knights, which is obviously a great matchup. I start thinking, how much benefit is there actually to go with Turbo? I don't know. It's really, if I knew he was playing that West Tigers game in round 14, I'd be a lot more confident, because I'd say, look, that's a great matchup where you can captain him. But I always hear with State of Origin in terms of recovery, it's actually sometimes better to have a shorter turnaround, say 2 days, because you don't have enough of the soreness build in yet, as opposed to say the 4 days. So yeah, I've got his stats as well from previous games. He obviously has done well since the start of the season when he had tough matchups, but hasn't quite obviously hit the heights of last year. So that's why I was thinking, like, is he worth a 900k outlay? Like, it's very easy to go to him from Pappy, but like when we get to my trades or what I can do with my trades later on, if I don't go with Turbo, I can get like 3 guns this week instead. So yeah, I'd be keen to see what you guys think about Turbo. Is it such a straightforward move? I think there could be an element of me overthinking it because he will be heavily brought in. He is, I think, the second most traded player in at this point in time, if I have a quick look at that just on the website. So he is getting heavily bought, but I don't know. I feel like there's some pause for concern on my end. Just with the draw coming up, it's not the easiest on paper. Even in good matchups so far this year, Canberra and the West Tigers, he scored 87 and 78, which is fine, but at his price, is it worth it? It's got a BE of 130, so it's still a relatively high break even. You can hedge Turbo with Garrick, who's like 650k. You can save yourself like 250k. If Manly do well, Garrick will still do okay, because Turbo might be the one who's like, think about it like this. Tim Moody actually made a great point on their wrap-up podcast on the SE Experience. Sorry, mind blank for a second there. If Turbo's the one setting up all the tries to his left for Garrick, say hypothetically, Turbo will get a TA and a LBA, so try assist and a line break assist for 20 points. If Garrick is the one getting them, he'll get the try and the line break, which is worth 27 points, plus maybe the goal kick. So like Garrick obviously benefits more from being set up from those tries as opposed to, say, Turbo. The benefit is obviously if Turbo goes to the right hand side. Although if you have like a Tui Pelotu like me, you're still going to benefit. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I go with like Garrick instead and I don't go Turbo. I'd be keen to see what you guys think. Like 900 AK is a lot. We still have to think it's a lot of money just because we can easily get to him. Is he worth it? And also Garrick will cover round 13 against the Warriors, which is a great matchup. He will play fullback. So yeah, I'm not sure about Turbo. I don't think it's so straightforward. I know it's not quite a clear-cut answer. I'm like that you guys might be hoping for, but I don't know. I can see Jonathan saying that he's bringing in Turbo in round 15. That could also be an option, but even then you're saying you're bringing him in against the Cowboys and then the Storm. And if the Cowboys maintain their form, we're saying they're a decent opposition. Then it's the Storm. Then it's again Origin. Again a question mark over backing up. So I feel like even round 15, I feel like you get him now, or you get him in round 18 or 19. That's what it feels like. It feels like if you don't get him this week, you're not going to get him in for a while. So yeah, it's a really tough one. A few people saying they're too expensive. Sorry, that he's too expensive. A few people saying that Garrick, with the price saving, is going to be worth it instead of, say, Turbo. So like Ion saying, who else can I get for Pappy? Can't afford Turbo. You can definitely afford Turbo because Pappy's more expensive than Turbo. Broad is saying Turbo is Turbo. The reason my thinking is now that I don't go with him, but I'm scared as well because last year I made a similar mistake. When everyone was buying Turbo, I tried to be cute and got Gutherson, who was actually doing okay. He actually did okay, but Turbo smashed me. I was actually top 1,000 and then didn't get Turbo and I ended up like 6,000. He basically just killed my rank. Nick Meaney maybe an option as well. Yeah. So I feel like that last season pain is kind of scarring me a bit as well. But yeah, gun to my head, I don't think I'll actually get him. Even Drinkwater's maybe an option. But yeah, gun to my head, I'm thinking I might not actually get Turbo this week. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But we will obviously expand into other Papenhuyzen replacements. So a few people are asking who else would you go for, say if you don't go for Turbo. So I did mention Garrick already. Look, it's the same draw as Turbo, but the benefit is that his beat is a bit more achievable at 50. And he also does play round 13. And it's that argument that with Turbo in the team, Garrick will do well. I don't mind going with both, as Up Cronulla says. Or Up Shark, but I'm going to guess Up Cronulla. That, yeah, you can get both. If you're going for one, you could maybe just go with Garrick, the goal kicker. If you think Manly going to do well overall because of Turbo, Garrick will still do okay with the goal kicking. So I think Garrick is probably the next best replacement for Papenhuyzen if you're not going to go with Turbo. And obviously, Garrick is at centre wing, so you would need to have one of your centres slot down into fullback. So if you own like a Kula or a Suwali, they both have fullback dual status as well, so you can flip them down. So I think Garrick is probably the next best option. A few people were asking about Brian To'o earlier. Now, Toto, again, similarly, the next 3 rounds are pretty tough. Storm is pretty tough. Roosters is actually okay. Toto's a beast. He's got amazing base and power stats, so he's never going to give you a bad score. So even round 11's okay. Round 12, look, it is Cowboys, but Panthers are a bit of a different argument where they are like top 2 team alongside with Melbourne. He'll miss round 13. I expect he would back up in round 14 and then in round 15 from State of Origin. So I'm personally thinking, because Toto still has a decently high break, even 116, I'd probably go with Garrick first, and then I'll try maybe get Toto in round 14. Maybe target that Knights fixture up when he comes back from State of Origin. That's my thinking with Toto, if you are looking that way. And hopefully he bleeds more cash. Maybe we can get him at around like the mid 500s, high 500s if he does have the high break even. But look, based on his outing from last week, I'm not sure how long he's going to drop in cash. But yeah, I would still probably go with Garrick ahead of Toto. And then maybe look at targeting Toto in round 14. That's my thinking. Other options, I know Drinkwater's been mentioned quite a few times as well. Even he is like not ideal because he's gone up to like 670k. And I feel like last week when he had that negative break even and he had the good matchup when they versed the Knights, I feel like that was the better week to get him. You still obviously have the Tigers, but then you have the Storm and then the Panthers. So any money he makes could be lost by then. In round 13, he is a good option though, because obviously he's got the Titans. So I'm even thinking Drinkwater. I know it doesn't make sense because, you need to sell Papenhuyzen this week. But even Drinkwater could be an option that you buy in round 13. Maybe he's dropped some cash if he has, if he underperforms against, say, the Storm and the Panthers. And then get him in round 13 when he's got the Titans. And then you're laughing because then you've got the Dragons and then he has the Manly Sea Eagles again as well. And yeah, that's my thinking in Drinkwater. Not sure. NRL edits, chill. Otherwise we will have to put you on a timeout in the chat. So yeah, Drinkwater, I think maybe I'm not loving him as a pick either. I would still prefer Garrick, I think, just so if you're not going turbo, at least you're still getting a bit of that Manly action. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Drinkwater as well. Alright, there's a few people in the chat who are very trigger happy today. If you keep doing that, we will... Alright, you know what? We're going to time out. Alright, no need to spam. So yeah, just chill on the comments and you can post decent comments normally. So yeah, anyway, getting a bit sidetracked there. So yeah, Drinky could be an option, but... And look, it is a good game this week as well, but I feel like at 670k, I would probably buy Toto at 670k, but I still think it's a bit expensive for Drinkwater. I know a few people are asking about Tedesco. I've got the next section to talk about Tedesco and the Roosters in general, so just hold fire on that, and I'll give my thoughts on that as well. I've got Gutherson here just because I don't think the Eels draw is actually that bad now after the that Penrith game, where he actually did really well. He scored in the 90s. Like a BE of 56, so he's probably going to be, he's kind of bottomed out at 550. He's not going to play Origin. And we just discussed, after the Roosters game, Manly still concede some points. Eels are a good team. Actually, I'm going to break my train of thought because someone just triggered it in my memory. Elijah says, is Hines a must? Yeah, I should have said this at the beginning. If you're selling Papenhuyzen and you don't own Hines is the number one buy. I should have said that at the beginning. Hines is 100% the number one replacement for Papenhuyzen. I didn't put him here because I thought it was obvious. But yes, no, 100%. Papenhuyzen to Hines, if you don't own him already, is the number one move I'd make before any of the stuff that I've already talked about. And he is a must in any case. Even if you don't need to sell Papenhuyzen for him, just get him. He's probably going to be the standout captain this week as well. We'll get to captaincy later in the stream, but he is probably going to be the standout captain. If he goes big again this week and you don't own, it's going to hurt. So yeah, Hines for me is a must. We don't use that term too often, but yeah, I think he is. Although Jonathan says, if you don't own Cleary, Hines, Munster and Grant by now, what you doing? Sad face. I don't own one of those players, so I don't know what I'm doing, Jonathan. No, but I know what you mean. A lot of those 4 guys you mentioned are very close to must-haves. But yeah, back on Gutherson, I don't mind him as a bit of a pod. I know a few people on Twitter were asking about pods, just because, it's always nice to have pods who do well for you. I don't mind Gutherson at fullback. If you're going for a direct replacement, Pappy to him frees up like, what's that? Just shy of 400k. So 400k gets you up massively. A few people are asking about Dylan Edwards. They do cover round 13, so that's obviously one benefit to him compared to, say, a Gutherson. But then look at this draw, like with Toto, Storm, Roosters, Cowboys, same draw for Edwards, and he is a bit more volatile than, say, Gutherson is volatile, I will admit that as well. Edwards would cover you for round 13, but it feels a bit tough in the sense that, I'm looking at his scores recently, so like his last... Okay, we'll do his last 5 scores. 81, 31, 81, 32, 61. It's very up and down. I know Gutherson is similar. I feel like Gutherson's got a bit more of the Supercoach friendly game though, because he does play both sides of the field for the Eels, whereas Edwards, he kind of takes a backseat to Luai and Cleary. So I feel like Gutherson has a bit more of the Supercoach friendly game, although Edwards is averaging more than him actually now that I look at it. He isn't good form. I don't mind it. I don't think I'd personally go for Edwards. I would prefer Gutherson. He's a bit cheap. Oh no, he's actually a little bit more expensive. But I prefer Gutherson. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he did well for me over Origin last season. But yeah, Dylan Edwards, I'm not as keen on. I think the next 3 games just kind of put me off. Instead of, say, like a Gutherson. And finally, I've got Nick Meaney. Again, like he would be such a good option goal kicking playing at fullback, but this draw just is so painful. Panthers, Cowboys, maybe Manly's okay. Then it's the Roosters. I know the Storm are the Storm and they can always do extremely well against anyone. So here's a pod. I don't mind, like I'd prefer Meaney over Drinkwater. If, say, for example, people were, thinking of Drinkwater, I'd actually prefer Nick Meaney. And then Drinkwater, I'd maybe try buy in round 13. But yeah. It's a tough one. Is Meaney going to be the Nico Hines of 2021? Where he just like goes on an insane run. I feel like if you are going to go Meaney, this week's the week to get him. -5 BE. He'll go over probably 600k if he gets even like a 50. I'm going to guess. I've mentioned. I can see Incentia. Hines scores last year after Papi's injury was 182, 138, 156. A bunch of big scores basically. Yep, that's why I threw it out there. Is Meaney going to be the Hines 2.0? I don't quite think so, but playing at fullback, goal kicking. Yeah, now that you say that, apart from this, like the Storm do play well against the Panthers. I should say that. And so yeah, Meaney, I think I do prefer Meaney actually over Drinkwater. If you can get a piece of like one of the best attacking teams, it's a good shout. So yeah, I don't mind Meaney. And if you are looking for pods, again, Meaney. Yeah, I think I would actually prefer him over Gutherson. Now that I'm talking about that, just because of the fact that he's goal kicking that Gutho's not, and negative BE and playing in a team that does score more points. So yeah, I'd say Meaney actually over Gutherson, but Garrick's probably my number 1. Covers round 13 as well. And finally, I've got Munster, Hughes, and Cherry Evans. If you've got the duels, you can even consider flipping to them. I don't mind that either. But yeah, we will talk about Munster. Now, a lot of people ask about Tedesco as a replacement for Papi. So Tedesco has done really well over the last few weeks. Like he scored a hat-trick last week against the Titans, although the Titans looked really poor, and they have been very poor as well. The reason I'm so iffy on buying Tedesco is this run that he's got coming up. Like Teddy does get rested over Origin because they've got such a great replacement in Joey Manu. They can put Manu straight in at fullback. They've got enough backs. They can bring in the likes of an Aguama to cover that. Keep Suwali there. Even a Billy Smith is playing in the reserves, so he's also playing. So he's available. Adam Kieran. So it makes me think that Tedesco will get rests because he does historically. And this run is awful. Like Eilders okay, I think, to target for conceding points, but then it's the Panthers and then the Sharks. Raiders he won't play because of Origin. Freddie's already come out and confirmed that he will be the fullback for New South Wales barring injury. Then he comes back to the Storm, Eels again, Panthers, and then misses again because of round 17. So I think if I was selling Papenhuyzen, I don't think I'd be buying Tedesco, even despite his recent good form. I feel like some of the teams that we verse have flattered, like the Titans. He has looked a lot better. Like I'd say over this run, Tedesco's probably still going to average at least 60, 65. But I feel like when the draw is tough, you can maybe take a chance on other players. And don't forget that he has had an easy draw. And a lot of people did sell, like myself, even when he was not scoring that well against some easier opposition. So yeah, for me, I don't think I'd be going out and buying Tedesco. If you've got him, it's a really tough one. he probably isn't your biggest priority if you do have, like, say you have Tedesco and Papenhuyzen. I'd maybe still hold for this week at least, because he does have a low break even. I think it's around 7, so he will make money. And maybe you can play him this week against the Eels. It's still an okay fixture for scoring points. And then Panthers, maybe that point you can consider moving him off, maybe to someone else who takes your fancy. But I don't think I would be buying Tedesco. That's just this draw just looks awful to me, and knowing that he will get some rest as well. And in terms of other Roosters players, I'd probably hold them if they're not Origin players, just because they will cover round 13, and they do have a good match in round 13 against the Raiders. So the likes of Tupanua, who's starting, I'd maybe just hold him. Joey Manu, I think, will be a great option in round 13. Again, but I look at this draw, it probably puts me off buying the likes of, say, if you have Mort Suwali yet, I don't know if I'd be buying Suwali anymore. I feel like that ship has kind of sailed. And Angus Crichton is cheap, but I think with Cam Murray especially getting injured, I feel like that opens the door for Crichton to go straight back into New South Wales. There was some talk that he might not get into the 17. I think Tarek Sims, and then, you've got probably Crichton will maybe start at second row forward. Even if you're looking like a Madison could come in, Hamoli. I still feel like Freddie's pretty loyal, and I think he'd put Crichton back in there. So I think Crichton would even be similar kind of resting to, say, a Tedesco as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Tedesco conundrum, if you want to call it that, for anyone who is interested in, looking to buy Tedesco, or whether you wanted to hold him, what to do with him. I think he's an okay hold for this week, but I'd maybe look to move on then, just before his run gets really tough. So for example, Peter's saying hold Satili or swap him for Hamoli. That's a tough one, because Hamoli is a really good buy this week. I would just maybe try to hold Satili because he has got that round 13 coverage. I am saying, who do you replace for Tedesco then? I think this week you can defer the decision. I think this week is okay to hold him. And next week you can consider, maybe you go for a Gutherson after he's played the Roosters. Maybe you can consider Amini. You can think about it then next week. But I know there's kind of deferring the decision. But yeah, some clone commander saying, replace him for Nick Meaney. You could do that if you want to capitalize on the price changes, because Nick Meaney is going to have a negative break even this week. But he's not a must sell this week. But I think from around rounds 11, 12, before that really tough run in Origin, I'd probably sell then. And Rennie, I've seen your question. We will discuss David Clemmer later. There's a specific section on pods a bit later. Incentia saying Teague with the draw. I haven't actually discussed Teague Wilton at all in my in this stream, but we'll obviously get to him in a more general section. So before I get on to some Cam Murray replacements, which is a part after this, I wanted to talk about Munster and Grant, because I know a few people did ask questions. I'm actually in the same position. Jonathan alluded to it earlier. If you don't own Grant, Munster, Hines, and Cleary, what you doing? So I don't own Munster, and he's absolutely killing it. I was wrong about Munster in the preseason. I have to admit that. I was saying I said he would be the highest, averaging 5'8", but I said, does he have the upside to warrant his selection? And also when he was not playing in round 1. He's completely blown it out of the water. He's already got 300 plus scores. He's had one score, I think, around 96. He had 300 scores all season last year, and he's already done it before round 10. He's in insane form. Storm was scoring points for fun. So yeah, I don't know if it's worth still buying. Like, it probably is worth it, because he's averaging like 20 points clear of the next best 5'8". Like with my team, I've got Cody Walker and Dylan Brown. Cody Walker's got the Warriors this week. I feel like I can't sell him then. Dylan Brown has got the Roosters, but I feel like he's done enough to be like a warrant of a hold. So yeah, I'm not sure what to do with Munster. And the problem with Munster is he does well in big games. Like this Panthers game, he can score 85, 90. It wouldn't even, it's not surprising at all. So I'd be keen to see what you guys think about, getting in Munster. Especially say even with my dilemma with Cody and Dylan Brown, maybe I could sell Dylan Brown, but it doesn't, I don't know. I feel like I could use that money, upgrade elsewhere. And I might just have to watch Munster through closed hands all the way up until round, maybe round 14. I can look at buying him then. And Harry Grant, low score of 79 all season, averaging 95. I feel like Grant is a different level in the sense that, like, the next best hooker, I can't even tell you. It's probably Damien Cook. And he's been averaging fine. I think, what's his average? His average is 70. So Grant is 25 points clear of the next best hooker. I want to say Dylan Brown is the next best 5'8", or maybe it's Drinkwater. He's 75 average. So the gap between Grant and other hookers is more than, say, a Munster to other 5'8s. So I'd say Grant is more of a pressing trade-in if you don't own Grant already. And the ceiling of like 138 points at hooker is ridiculous. So yeah, people who are asking about, getting in Grant, I feel like Grant's a bit of a different one. You still have 3 rounds. And the problem is that his break-even's 18 and he's already 803k. So his price could just be insanely high. Clone Commander asking about Munster's break-even. I've just got on screen. It's 59, which you can definitely achieve. So even Munster's going to go up in price as well. So, and yeah, Munster is someone you're going to be keeping all season. That's for sure. Brods is saying, just got to get him in. Yep. Shake's saying, so glad I've had Munster and Grant from the get-go. Yep, I'm very jealous of that as well. So, yeah, I'm torn on Munster, what to do with him. Is he worth the trade in now this week? I don't think it's such an easy decision. Someone asked about Cleary's break-even. It's very high. It's 192. So even Cleary you could maybe dodge. You probably got a lot more down in price as well. Yeah, so say, for example, Couch Potato. He says, what do you think of Randall and Tago out for Burbo and Grant? Now, we'll talk about Randall and Tago later. I actually still think they're both holds. But if that's your only way to get Grant, I'd probably say do it. Like, Randall's doing fine. He's averaging like in the 50s, but Grant is a monster. So when I see that, I'd say, yeah, it's probably worth it. But I don't feel totally comfortable doing it. And yeah, Cleary's got a break even 192. That's right, Tyler. Yeah, Randall could be a hold and Targo a hold, but when you're getting someone like Grant, it feels like a bit of a different case. But anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. I mean, their draw's still a bit up and down, but the storm of the storm. So yeah, I'd be keen to see what you guys think about, the whole, getting a Munster thing. Hoodie Your Mum says, Aman, have you got a poem this week? No, there was no poem this week, actually. If Pappy had gotten a ton, I might have, but no poem as of yet. But Magic Round, I'm sure we'll have one. Okay, I've got this little section on Papali'i. I kind of feel the same. Like, I don't own Papali'i, which is crazy. I don't know why I don't own Munster and Papali'i, but in any case, I need Papali'i. I think he's coming in for me this week. The man is on fire. I've been waiting for him to go down in price, and he never does. As you can see from his graph, his average just keeps going up, which is ridiculous. And look, he won't play round 13, but he'll play round 17. So he'll be fine. Like, look, fine. He's not a play for round 13, but you'll have him for one of the bye weeks. So yeah, anyone who's thinking about Papali'i, like last week, I've completely changed my thinking. Last week I was like, oh, you know what? I think you can dodge him. Wait till like say round 14, but he just doesn't stop. And so I'm thinking I just stop the bleeding and pay top dollar, which is kind of annoying. But it's also different when I can sell Papenhuyzen and I've got the money sitting there. So yeah. Incentive saying you refuse to own IPAP as an Eels fan. Why? I don't try to be so like, oh, I don't want to avoid someone. Like, I don't want to be so stubborn. I just want to try to be as open-minded as I can. Papali'i's a monster, honestly. 106 break even. Look, would it shock me if he didn't get less than that? He's running at Sam Walker this week. He could even be a captain this week. There was talk of this wet weather. Papali'i, a forward who's averaging like 70 points in base power, running at Sam Walker, could easily dash over for a try, and you're looking at 100 points, and he's gone up over 800k, and I still don't own him, and I'm thinking, why the hell don't I own him? So I think I'm going to buy him this week. That's my mini rant of Papali'i over. Anyway, so for example, Callum says, Paps and Coates and Muzz. Who's Muzz? Can you just clarify who Muzz is? I hope that's not Munster. To TPJ, Garrick and IPAP. I mean, I like Garrick and IPAP. If you just confirm who Muzz is, Callum, then I can confirm those trades. But like, yeah, I think Coates is okay actually to sell with a tough matchup. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, bit of a looking at the chat moment there. But yeah, that's my rant on Papali'i over. So a few people were asking about Cam Murray replacements and like 2RFs. A few questions coming in around like TPJ. Things like that. So I wanted to go through like some second row forwards and even some front row forwards, via duels, who to sell for Cam Murray. I think Cam Murray is a sell. So yeah, look, I've got IPAP there. I think he's the number one option. Just get it done if you don't own him like me. But yeah, in terms of others, so there's quite a few obviously to consider. So if you want your round 13 coverage, the likes of Tamalolo, Olukwatu and TPJ are your best bets, I think. Now, out of those, I'd probably say Olukwatu probably has the highest upside. The base and power is a bit down, but he does have that ability to get attacking stats. And so, yeah, just to clarify for a couple of people who are asking, Murray had like a bit of a neck issue. So I've heard 3 to 4 weeks. That in combination with State of Origin coming up, which he'll miss potentially, but he will also play. I think at his value, he is a sell. I like Olukwatu back after 2 weeks. He's probably the most obvious swap, I think, for Murray, if you want that round 13 coverage, and probably a guy who you'd consider as a season keeper. Tamalolo, you can also consider, but he has a break even of 74, so you could maybe wait a week. The thing with Tamalolo, though, is that he was very close to getting 2 tries last week, and so he's playing really well. And the Cowboys do have the Tigers this week, so he could be a nice buy for this week to cover also front row forward. So, like, I'd probably rank Olukwatu, Tamalolo, and TPJ in that order for your round 13 options. TPJ obviously is a decent option in terms of historically he's a good Supercoach prospect. I'm personally thinking if I want to get TPJ, I might wait until, say, the round 13, just so you've got confirmation that he will actually play, not get suspended. Olukwatu and Tamalolo should be okay for that. So say, for example, Inkcent is asking Papi to Meany, Lukey to Olukwatu. Lukey will cover round 13. I'll just have a quick look at his scores. I know he has been coming off the bench, but he does make a good impact coming off the bench. Like, he scored tries. So he scored 47 and 44, so yeah, not ideal. I would think maybe Lukey could hold potentially Inkcentia and maybe go for someone else to Olukwatu if you can. And yeah, actually, someone makes a good point. Cassidy, would Olukwatu be close to Origin now? Yeah, with the Cam Murray injury, he would be closer. I still think, though, like, Crichton ranks ahead of him. Tarek Sims would probably rank ahead of him. I think Ryan Madison actually would rank ahead of him as well. I think Madison has been closer to State of Origin in the past. So I think Matter, who's actually playing really well. Even Nathan Brown has been in the Origin arena. So I feel like Olukwatu is safe. There might be something to put you off. But I still think there's enough players ahead of him in the pecking order for State of Origin that I think he's still an okay buy. Kikau, someone you might want to consider for round 13, although Kikau has been doing well. I feel like I always sell the guy short. But look, 80, like the last 3 weeks, he's gone 80, 66, and 76. So the base is down, but look, he always gets his attacking stats. So Kikau is an option, but does have the tougher matchup in Melbourne this week. And look, I don't really like owning Kikau. So yeah, I probably won't go with Kikau, but he's an option who covers round 13. Like, I'd rank Kikau below Tamalolo and TPJ and Olukwatu, in my opinion. Now, Ruben Cotter, I'm actually looking at myself this week. The question with him, though, is obviously there's some talk that he's going to play for Queensland, State of Origin. I still think Ben Hunt plays a utility role, so I still feel like Cotter might be safe. And if so, I think he's a fantastic option. He's a cut price at 504k, has the dual status, still has a low break even. So, yep, I don't mind going with Cotter as well. Even if he doesn't cover round 13, if he keeps his minutes up like he has the last 2 weeks and bumps out like a 65 average, those are 65 averages keeper numbers, and he has got that handy dual status. Inkcentia does say that surely Cotter's in that side. Yeah, look, there's a good chance of it, but I still think he's an okay purchase for the fact that he could be close to a keeper if he keeps playing these big minutes. He's an absolute workhorse. It's insane. I've got Connor Watson, but I don't think I'd be going with Watson this week. I'd give it a week just to assess the minutes, and he still has a relatively high break even at 78 as well. So I feel like that can also wait. A few options. So like Ewan Aiken, I know I've got Ewan Aiken written there. Could maybe be a nice round 13 cover, but again, with Tohu Harris coming back, you'd want to see how the minutes play out. I still think Aiken would play the full 80, but that's something to keep in mind. Josh Jackson as well for like a real plotter at second row forward for round 13, but I feel like there's a bit more excitement with the likes of Tamalolo, TPJ, and Olukwatu, who have some attacking upside. I know a few people have asked about Adam Elliott. So Adam Elliott, yeah, look, if you want to buy him, I can't trust Ricky. And I actually read the Tim Williams SC Playbook teams breakdown, and he actually mentioned that the Raiders are in the market for a hooker. So Elliott has been playing a hooker, but I feel like if they're in the market for a hooker and they get one, would that mean Elliott to the bench? So yeah, that's one reason why I might not go with Adam Elliott, and I also just don't like going with Raiders forwards. Madison coming off the bench, probably not consideration. Schuster would have been one, but he's not named this week, so you can't really look at him for this week. Teague Wilton. So I haven't mentioned Teague Wilton here. I don't mind actually getting Teague Wilton. He would be a definite pod. Has got a decent draw coming up as well. So he's got the Raiders, the Titans, and then the Roosters before the bye. So he does have attacking upside as well. He scored already 4 tries this season. And Wade Graham's still coming off the bench. So yeah, honestly, I don't actually mind that Wilton punt. And the Sharks do seem to favour their right. Sorry, they do seem to favour the left side attack. And I actually think the next 3 weeks, so those 3 specific games, without Ramian, I feel like they're going to go more to their left side, which I think is going to benefit someone like Teague Wilton who plays on the left edge. So I know I haven't gotten his name written here. But yeah, actually, I think if you're looking for a non-round 13 option, more of a short-term punt or someone just you're fine to keep even through round 13, I don't mind Teague Wilton. He's at a good price, 515k. Now that you mention that, I don't mind that at all, actually. I've been thinking about some other options, but yeah, someone was asking about Teague Wilton as a trade-in, so they're saying Paps, Coates, and Andrew Fafita, Tamini, Wilton, and Garrick. Actually, I think all 3 of those trades are pretty good, Isaac. You have mentioned Cotter. I mean, neither will play. I mean, Cotter might play round 13, but we're thinking there's a chance he doesn't. Cotter or Wilton. Like, Wilton's base stats, look, he based 57 last week, which is really good as well. Before that, though, most of his base stats were around the mid-30s, high 30s, low 40s. Cotter's are like up in the 60s. So, and Cotter does have the dual. So I think I'd still just lean Cotter. But I don't mind that punt for Wilton. Even outside of the bye, he has round 14, 15, 16. He has the Warriors, Titans, and Bulldogs. It's a great run, actually. So, yeah, I would still maybe just shade Cotter. If you're buying one, if you're buying one this week, probably Wilton. And then if Cotter doesn't play round 13, you can always buy him then. Maybe you can play it that way as well, instead of making that decision with Cotter and then missing out on Wilton's good draw. So maybe buy Wilton actually this week, and then you can kind of wait and see on Cotter. That's my thinking there. All right, that's probably enough on my replacements. Someone's asking about what about AFB? What do you do with him? Oh, yeah, I haven't actually got AFB at all in my discussions, but yeah, look, I think he's a sell. I know he covers round 13, but he's been poor. Yeah, he's been poor. I would be like, if say for example, if you're going AFB to IPAP, I'd get it done. Like, I think IPAP will outscore him enough that he'll make up for any lost points in round 13. Josh saying, hey man, just popping in to say love you. Whisper up, mate. Hope your trip to Tweed Heads is going well. Yeah, sorry that I wasn't able to tune into any of your content this week, but we'll be chatting plenty. And yeah, boost for Havili. So speaking of Havili, so some cash cows. So a few people earlier were asking about Ben Trbojevic. I think he's an okay buy. Brad Parker should still be out until round 13. I read an article that was from last week where it was at least a 1-month rehabilitation, and then the Sea Eagles were going to decide what to do with him, which I feel like will cover Trbojevic until round 13. And he's named at centre ahead of Morgan Harper, which I think is very encouraging. So Isaac's asking, is Burbo a must? I'm in a bit of a tricky spot where I don't know if I'll actually buy him this week because I went double cheapie last week already. And I feel like this week I might actually skip him and go with like the gun upgrades. The thing with Burbo is that if there's any potential for him to like drop into the drop out of the 17, he automatically becomes an AE nightmare. But I feel like named at centre, he looked really good at attack in all honesty as well. So decent matchup against the Broncos this week. Like 34 points in base. He was playing in the second row though. But yeah, look, I think Burbo is a really good purchase for a cheapie duel. I think he probably has a job security at least for until round 13. You know, he covers round 13 coverage as well. But yeah, I don't know if I'd be like, I don't think I'd be not breaking my team because obviously he's super cheap. I don't think he's a must, but I think he's a very good cheapie, and he does have the duels. So, you know, he does have second or forward centre wing, so that's really handy as well. So, yeah, don't mind Burbo. I've got Isaiah Tass written here, but he's not named, so he's obviously not a purchase this week as well. Tui Pelotu, I feel, if you're going for a mid-range up centre wing, just if that's your price range, I still think he's a decent buy because it looks like he's locked down that right wing spot until Jason Saab comes back, which should also be for round 13. There still will be some money to make with a minus 32 break even, and this game is good, or it's okay, against the Broncos and then the Eels, and you're kind of hedging against Turbo if you say don't go with Turbo, if you're playing on the right wing there. So I still think he's an okay get. Cooler, I don't think is a buy, but looks still a very good hold with a low break even. Valea is a bit of an iffy one in the sense that I want to double check that break even just in case I've got that wrong. No, his break even is 4, but he scores like 10 points without a try. He scored 30 points the last few weeks when he's scored a try. So I think he's someone I'm just looking to hold to around 13, and then I'll bin him basically straight away. But if you have, say, no other centre wings to downgrade to Burbo, and you need that money to do something else, I honestly would be okay selling Valea to Burbo. Because Valea, I feel like you sell him, he's not going to hurt you at all. And Burbo has got the dual status. Now, Havili, a few people, Josh is in the chat saying boost for Havili. Now, look, I throw it out there. With Cam Murray's injury, I feel like Havili's going to play extra minutes. He has hooker, second row forward dual status, so it's a pretty good dual. 267k, so he's cheap. We know that the Rabbitohs have got a good draw coming up. The last 2 weeks, he has got some attacking stats, which have obviously boosted his scores up. But he's got 56 and 54, and he's got a negative 23 break even. Warriors this week, Raiders, and then the Tigers before the bye. Is Havili a buy? I know a few weeks ago, like me and the Whisperer, I think, were talking him down. But I don't know. Like, who are you selling though for Havili? Are you selling Corey Pakes? I don't mind selling Corey Pakes, maybe make some money out of Havili. Like, I wouldn't be selling Chris Randall. But look, second or forward, maybe if you're selling Tuolagi from the Tigers, Tuolagi down to Havili. It feels a bit cute, you know, when you've got Burbo sitting right there that you could downgrade to instead, who frees up more money. But look, I'm just throwing it out there. If Havili does well the next few weeks, tag me. But yeah, I don't mind him. He's a pod, 6% owned. Yeah, a few people saying Clark. Yeah, if you've got Aaron Clark, you've got Corey Pakes. Yeah, you can potentially sell. Brodie Jones, Tuolagi. Yep, exactly. You know, if you're doing a double, if you are looking for a cheapie in second or forward, you know, if you've got like a Brodie Jones or something, or Tuolagi, and you've already got Burbo, consider Havili. Consider Havili. He's got a decent duel. We'll make some money. I don't know if that's crazy, but yeah. Don't kill the messenger. Alright, we'll just talk about a few sells. And then I'll try to wrap up things soonish so I can get more to your questions, guys. Because I know there's a lot of questions coming in. I haven't really been able to address all of them just yet. Yeah, Ilias, I'm not sure if it's a massive sell. He looked quite good. The draw is still okay with a BE of 25. Just to quickly answer your question, Noah, I have 24 trades. So I've used quite a few trades and still sitting in a poor rank. So not doing something right with those trades. Now, just to quickly wrap up on Ilias. Doesn't cover round 13, but the next 3 games are okay. I still think he's okay to hold if there's no immediate concerns. But if you're selling Ilias for, like, say, a Cody, I actually don't know if I'd do Ilias to Cody anymore. Cody's not giving me great vibes. But yeah, I still think the break-even's fairly low. So yeah, could consider holding, but probably is an okay sell. Now, Targo, I don't think is a sell. I know a few people, he is the second most traded out player. Does have a tough run of games coming up, but I still think he'll be, like, the break-even's 58, which I think he can just about reach. So I think for me, he's going to be an okay number for round 13 when they're versus the Bulldogs. It's a good matchup that week. I just have faith that he's playing in a good team. And, you know, in round 13, when there's no Cleary, no Luai, like how the Panthers will attack, you know, Sean O'Sullivan, he's probably just going to just give it to Kikau. You know, probably says, here you go, Kikau. Kikau, Taylor May, Targo, there's no To'o. So, you take the ball and you do your thing. So I feel like Targo in that specific week will be a good hold. So I'm still leaning to holding Targo. I know a lot of people are selling for like a Burbo. I still think, I feel like the likes of a Tulangi, much bigger sells, like a Brodie Jones. I'd even sell like a Valea for a Burbo instead of Targo, in my opinion, because I think Targo could still be decent depth. Tom says Targo's running at Seve and Eremaya this week. Yeah, look, that's not the best side of the Storm defense, so you can make that argument as well. You can always spin a narrative, but yeah, I don't think Targo is a sell. I don't think Stags is a sell either. I know he's really frustrating. Look, this is why I sold him that first month, but we were talking about all those good options who have tough draws. The Broncos actually have a decent run coming up. Manly, Knights and Titans before the draw. I know Stags hasn't done well in the easy games this season, but when I look at that, that break-even is not 33. Let me fix that. Let me quickly find that, because I'm pretty sure it's 83, isn't it? 83. So I've just done a typo there. Yeah, so his break-even is 83. So it's a high break-even, but he does have that ceiling. So a few people who asked Matt Stags as a sell, I don't think so necessarily. I think he's an okay hold. Arrow I had here, but I prepared this before the whole Cam Murray news. So I think Murray is a hold now, because I think he'll play extra minutes playing at lock. Excuse me. I haven't written Coates here. We'll quickly talk about Coates. So just going to quickly look at his break even. So we already highlighted previously that the Storm do have a tougher run coming up. That doesn't really affect the likes of Amini, who's goal kicking, Cam Murray, who's a monster, and Harry Grant. Coates' BE is 46, and he has to get a try probably to get 46. Like, he scored 31 last week, and he's definitely going to play Origin, in my opinion. Panthers, Cowboys, and then Manly. A 46 break-even is not super high. Like, you could hold him this week. But, I don't mind the sell. If you're selling for like a Burbo. The only reason is that because people are selling Papenhuyzen, they should have enough money floating around. But say Coates to Garrick, I'd probably pull the trigger on that move. Because Garrick, I think, will outscore him. Covers round 13, that Coates won't. So yeah, Coates I think is an okay sell, but I don't think he's a must sell. I'll put it that way. Talakai, a few people asked about Talakai. We spoke about Wilton earlier in terms of their draw. For me, Talakai is not a sell. I know it's a bit different for me because I bought him at 700k, so I feel like it's too early for me to sell. But look, he's playing on that dangerous left-hand side. He could have been given a try assist, if you want to argue it that way, for one of Connor Tracy's tries. I think they will target their left side with that Ramian and Hines coming in at fullback. Look, he's versing the Raiders, who are poor. Then it's the Titans, who are poor. It's the Roosters, so look, it's a toughish matchup, but it's fine. Then he has the bye. Then it's the Warriors, Titans, and Bulldogs. For me, like, the Sharks have one of the better draws in the NRL at the moment. He's not a sell for me. Talakai is not a sell for me. DRX is asking, is Tass a sell? I wouldn't sell Tass because he's cheap, and also if there's any issue with, say, like a Jackson Paulo or a Tane Milne where they drop out of the team, I assume Tass will be next man up, and he's still got a negative break even, so the next time Tass plays, he will still make money. Like, I would sell a Valea over a Tass, put it that way. As someone says, Talakai will run amok against Canberra. Yeah, I don't think Talakai is a sell. A few other names I've got here, like Josh and Max King. Josh King is firmly a hold now, in my opinion, with his minutes and his scores recently. Max King also a hold until round 13. Dylan Brown I still think is a hold, although I'm starting to think, is he a sell for Munster? I'm not sure. Moses for me is a sell though. You can go to Cleary, go to Hines, go to a fullback via Jules. Okay, we'll quickly go with some pods. So I know a few people asked about pods. A lot of the guys we've already spoken about, like Amini, Gutterson, Garrick, if you're looking at To'o, they're all pods already, so I'm not going to repeat them. But so I've got a few other guys here. Sorry, I need to update Jerome Hughes' price. He's not 469k. I wish he was that price, but he's a bit more expensive than that. He is 673. I knew I would have missed something. This is the problem with prepping stuff 20 minutes before the stream. But yeah, a few pods. So I know Clemmer was spoken about previously. A few people asked about Clemmer. If you're going for a pod at front row forward, don't mind going with Clemmer. The only issue with him is that you've got the likes of Tamalolo and TPJ who are around the similar price who will play round 13. So I feel like they're a much easier buy than him. Just to answer your question, MXRKK, pod, we say pod, point of difference. So lower owned players. So lower owned players who can help you boost up rankings wise. Sorry, Cameron, I got you excited about Hughes. Clem, I think he's done really well the last few weeks. The Knights do get Barnett back. I still feel like Clemmer will do well. A few people talking about Cherry Evans. Like, honestly, Cherry Evans has been super, super consistent so far this year. So I'll just pull up his numbers. The only thing with him is that he will play State of Origin, so he won't play round 13. But Cherry Evans, from memory, historically does back up quite often. So I still think he won't get as much resting as, say, like maybe a Trbojevic. Cherry Evans' lowest score this season is 60, which is ridiculous. He's gone 60, 60, 62, 80, 69, 69, 67, 74, 105. So last week was his first ton of the season. But every week he's finding ways to get points. So, honestly, if you're selling Papenhuyzen, flipping Taff down, say, to fullback or flipping Hines, don't mind the Cherry Evans pod. 38 average. What am I saying? 71. I knew I had my numbers around mixed up. Sorry. Thank you for confirming. So Cherry Evans is honestly a decent shout as a pod if you want to boost up your halfback stocks. I'm thinking about it as well. Even last week I was thinking about it with Hughes, who did well. So even Jerome Hughes and Cherry Evans, both decent pods. Campbell Graham in your centre wing, I think playing on the left-hand side will be better for it. That's the preferred side, I think, of the Rabbitohs. And he's got really high base. Doesn't play round 13, but another nice pod to consider. I think it was Wall G on Twitter who asked about pod, so this section goes to you, my man. Now, Matt Burton, he hasn't done that well. He scored 71 last week, but only an average of 45. Bulldogs don't have a horrible run coming up, and they will cover round 13. So if I just take a quick look at their draw coming up. So they've got the Knights, the Tigers, the Dragons, and then the Panthers in round 13. So it's all club. And he'll be versing a weakened team though. Panthers obviously won't have a lot of their origin stars. It feels a bit, it feels a bit too poddish for me. Like 71 was his first decent score of the season, apart from a 69 in round 2. Otherwise he's mainly gone like mid-30s. The Bulldogs for me just don't score enough points that they just don't have enough points scoring in them, I think, to warrant it. I know he's cheap, but at 5'8", I feel like you've got Brown, Cody, Munster, probably even Drinkwater, probably all rank above him. But if you're going for a cheaper option, Burton, he could be a pod. Guys, just no need to spam so much, otherwise we'll put you on timeout. So, put your question once. Excuse me. So just answer a quick question here. Aman, you have Cook, but you can go from Paps to Grant via duels. Would you do this? Yeah, I think I would. Lock in Cook and Grant. They might get some restings over Origin, but Grant's a freak. Yes, I would do that Fowler. A few other pods. So we've spoken about quite a few of these guys already, but Adam Reynolds, he has done well over the last 2 weeks. Broncos draw is okay, as we highlighted previously with Stags. So don't mind Adam Reynolds, although I think a halfback, I'd still prefer like Cleary, Hines, Hughes, and Cherry Evans over him. So those would be my potential pods if you're looking at pods. Do you reckon Clemmer could be a long shot for Origin? Maybe. Like he's outplaying Safidi in my opinion. Like Freddie is just very loyal, so I still feel like the props will be like maybe Gerbo, maybe Saifidi, Junior Paulo, Payne Haas. I feel like all 4 of them still rank above Clemmer in Freddie's eyes. Clemmer probably is outplaying Safidi. But in any case, I think Clemmer's still a decent option to go for. Jeff is asking Drinkwater or Garrick. I think I'd go with Garrick. Okay, we'll quickly take a look at top 10 trades in and outs, although I think I've spoken about almost all of these players already. Like if I look at the top trade outs, like Brodie Jones, I think, fine to sell. Even Schneider's starting to lose money. Slow mode, maybe I should do slow mode. How do I do that? I don't know how to do that, James, so I'll figure that out next time. Tuolangi, I think Tuolangi I'm going to sell this week, in my opinion. He's just been really disappointing. His break-even is relatively low, but yeah, I think he's an easy sell, as is Murray. Targo I don't agree with, though. And yeah, top trade ins, I think we've spoken about all of them already, so I don't think I really need to go into them too much. I think I'll try to spend more time with your questions. So finally, we'll just look at captaincy. So captaincy this week is pretty interesting because all of the top teams do play each other, like Melbourne versus Storm. Sorry, no, Melbourne versus the Panthers. Not the Panthers and Melbourne versus each other. Para and the Roosters play each other. So for me, in terms of like vice captains, if you're going with a Manly player, like Tavojevic is the obvious one. I haven't gotten him here as well, but you could also go with Garrick. Like Garrick is only averaging 64 versus Turbo, who's 66. So he's only averaging like 2 points less, which is again another reason why in my head I was thinking I might not actually go with Turbo. But with the Broncos, probably is an obvious vice captain. Cody Walker could be a more pod vice captain. You know, versus the Warriors, who have been awful. His average hasn't been great, but look, he can do very well in that matchup. Cleary, we know, is safe as houses, but I'd actually prefer going with like a Grant or a Munster. The way they've been scoring points, like I think they're like if you do like a power ranking system, you'd say Melbourne are number one above the Panthers, and Munster is a big game player. I think Harry Grant is the same. You know, in Origin they always do very well. So going with a pod like VC or C on Munster, I don't mind that at all. I don't know if I'd straight C. I'd maybe do the VC because they play on the Saturday night, and then like Nicho Hynes, in my opinion, is going to be the standout captain this week with Canberra, and after scoring 180 points, averaging 94, I think he will be the most highly captained player. In fact, I'll see quickly on the website what the numbers are saying in terms of the most highly captained and vice captained player. So just bear with me for a second. So yeah, Nicho Hynes is the number one most captained at the moment with 23%. 18% is still on Papenhuyzen, but that's obviously going to disappear. Then it's Cleary, Tedesco, Grant, Turbo, Munster. So Munster is only 3% at the moment, so he definitely would be a pod captain shout. In terms of vice captain, Cleary is still number one. Then it's IPAP, and then it's Munster and Grant. So Munster and Grant are getting a few look-ins, but not a whole lot. So yeah, if you look, say someone just asked between like a VC, Munster, or Turbo, I'd probably still go Turbo, just it's a better matchup. But yeah, Munster could be a pod. We know he plays well in these big games. Ian's just asking, do you get Turbo for Tedesco next round against the Eels? I think you can still do that because Turbo has that highest break even. Yeah, Brendan's actually said Captain Drinky as a pod. Yeah, I haven't even got Drinkwater. I didn't even think about him. Apologies for overlooking Scotty. Yeah, look, I don't mind that at all. He's got a great matchup with the Tigers. Cowboys in form. Yeah. When did the Cowboys play? Do they play before or do they play after the Sharks? Just going to have a quick look at that. If they play before, he'd be a great VC pod before the Sharks. No, they play the last game of the week. Yeah, if your setup is, if you can do your setup, where Hynes is, say, a fullback, you could VC Hynes, Captain Drinkwater. That could be a way to do that. I don't mind that play, actually. Brenton, good shout there. Tedesco may be an option. Papali'i, as I mentioned, with that wet weather talk around Brisbane, there is scope for Papali'i just, running at Sam Walker, as I alluded to earlier. He could just smash him and just easily score a try. So I don't mind Papali'i as a safe captain. But for me personally, in my team at the moment, I think I'm leaning VC Walker and Captain Hynes. And it would take a big score from Walker, I think, to not go with Captain Hynes. I know he's the most popular option, but I feel like it's for good reason as well. Don't think I'd captain Walker in Accenture. I think I'd VC him, but no more than that. Alright, that's my take on that. Quick shout out as well for the group league. So Nigel, top score last week with 1,554, which is humongous. And then our top players in the group league. So Alex ranked 7 overall. Shout out to Alex if you're anywhere in the chat. And then the rest of you guys, Bris Vegas is the name for this week with Magic Round. So James, Mariah, David. David, I think that's you, Schuster. David Schuster, that's you, isn't it? Magical Shoe, I'm going to guess. 40 rank, mate. Absolutely smashing it. Shane, Charlie, Curtis, Joshua, and Daniel absolutely killing it. Even Daniel, despite that low week this week, still doing very well. Okay, so that's the end of my kind of plan stuff in terms of content. I'll quickly go to my team, just kind of quickly run through what I'm thinking high level in terms of trades, and then I'll spend about 5-10 minutes on that, and then we'll do like about 10-15 minutes of just straight Q&A, guys. So if you've got questions, maybe hold off for the next 5 minutes while I talk through my team, and then when I say we'll do questions, fire them in and we'll get to them. So thanks for everyone who's stuck around till now. We'll get to questions shortly. So I've got 24 trades, which is low, but I've got 480k in the bank after my moves last week. So like Papenhuyzen is going to be a sell, that's for sure. So this is the option this was the first thought I had this week, which was Papali'i to Turbo. So we're just getting Turbo here. And then what I was going to do, I still have 490k. I was going to do Tuolangi out for Papali'i and leave it at that. I was going to maybe just do those two moves. And then what I would play this week is I'd probably swap Papali'i for Josh King via duels. And I'd probably play Aitken, King. Actually, I'd probably play Hines, Dylan Brown. I'd maybe bench Targo because he is versing Melbourne Storm. So actually, you know what, it'd be easier to show this if I confirm the trades. So this was my initial thought coming into this week. So getting in Papali'i and Turbo for me just felt awesome. Papali'i and Haas, like just set and forget that front row forward pairing. I could play Josh King because he's a middle forward. Taff, who's got a good matchup, and then Hines. I'd probably have that as my setup. I wouldn't play Randall. A few people asked about Randall as a reserve, just because Phoenix Crossland is on the bench. He doesn't do as well. He probably won't play 80 minutes, so I don't think I'd be reserving Randall. If I wanted to captain Hines, what I'd have to do is swap Hines to halfback, and I'd have to swap him there. And I could do that, VC Turbo, captain Hines, and I could do that. That would be my team for this week. Suwali does have the Eels, but I still think that's an okay matchup. I'm happy to play Lomax. Someone actually asked, is a Lomax VC shout? Could be, actually. I don't mind that either. I think this week you can go a bit more poddish with your VC choices. But captaincy for me, I feel I want to keep it safe on like a Hines. So that would be my team potentially with just those two straight moves. Now I could boost with 34k. It doesn't really give me much money to play with though. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on these two trades. What I could otherwise do, so if I just revert. Oh, wait.